September 12, 1943. Munich, Germany. Generalmajor Werner Hartmann sat in his office at the Reich Air Ministry, reviewing the latest intelligence summary from operatives in neutral Sweden. His adjutant, Hauptmann Ernst Becker, had placed the document on his desk with a red priority marking. Hartmann read the assessment aloud, his voice dripping with contempt. American sources claim their aircraft factories are now producing 100 aircraft per day.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you.
Intelligence analysts believe this figure represents total Allied production, including British Commonwealth facilities, not American capacity alone. He tossed the report aside with a dismissive gesture. Propaganda nonsense. The Americans lack the industrial discipline, the engineering precision, and the workforce training to achieve such numbers. Their factories are too new, their workers too inexperienced, their designs too complex for mass production. What Generalmajor Hartmann did not know, what none of the German High Command could possibly comprehend, was that at that very moment, 3,000 miles away in Willow Run, Michigan, the Ford Motor Company was rolling a completed B-24 Liberator bomber off the assembly line every 63 minutes. In Long Beach, California, the Douglas Aircraft Company was completing a C-47 transport every 47 minutes. In Wichita, Kansas, Boeing was producing B-29 Superfortress components at a rate that would soon achieve one completed aircraft every 4 hours. The mathematics of industrial warfare were being rewritten by a nation that had transformed automobile assembly techniques into aircraft production methods. While German factories relied on skilled craftsmen building aircraft one at a time, American factories had created assembly lines where semi-skilled workers performed repetitive tasks with mechanical precision. What the German general could not grasp was that he was not simply reading an intelligence report. He was witnessing the death sentence of the Luftwaffe, written in the language of mass production, delivered by an industrial system designed specifically to overwhelm Germany through sheer numerical superiority. At the Willow Run manufacturing facility outside Detroit, Michigan, production director Charles Sorensen was orchestrating an industrial revolution that German engineers would have considered impossible. Ford Motor Company had been contracted to produce B-24 Liberator bombers using automobile assembly techniques, and Sorensen had transformed aircraft manufacturing from craft production into mechanized mass production. The facility itself represented a scale that German factories could not comprehend. The main assembly building stretched for over 1 mile in length, covering 67 acres under a single roof. More than 42,000 workers operated in 3 shifts, providing 24-hour continuous production. The building contained its own power plant, railroad system, and materials handling infrastructure that moved components with mechanical precision. Henry Ford himself had insisted that aircraft could be built using the same principles that produced Model T automobiles: interchangeable parts, specialized tooling, sequential assembly stations, and division of labor into simple, repetitive tasks. German craftsmen required years of training. Ford's system required workers to master a single task that could be learned in days. The B-24 Liberator bomber that German intelligence dismissed as too complex for mass production had been completely redesigned for assembly line manufacturing. Engineers had broken the aircraft into 5 major sub-assemblies that could be constructed simultaneously on parallel production lines. The forward fuselage, center fuselage, rear fuselage, wing assemblies, and empennage were built separately by specialized work teams. Each sub-assembly moved through sequential stations where workers performed specific tasks using specialized jigs and fixtures that ensured precise alignment. A worker installing hydraulic lines needed no understanding of overall aircraft systems. The jig positioned components exactly where engineering specifications required them. By March 1943, Willow Run was producing 1 complete B-24 every hour during peak operations. The production rate that German intelligence dismissed as propaganda was actually conservative. The facility was capable of exceeding 100 aircraft per month from a single factory, a number that represented total German bomber production from all factories combined. At the Douglas Aircraft Facility in Long Beach, California, a different approach was achieving equally impressive results. The C-47 Skytrain transport aircraft, military version of the commercial DC-3, was being produced using modular construction techniques that allowed multiple aircraft to be assembled simultaneously in a single facility. Production manager Donald Douglas Jr. had developed a manufacturing system that treated aircraft assembly like construction of identical houses in a planned community. Standardized components were prefabricated in specialized shops, then moved to assembly positions where teams installed them using predetermined sequences. The key innovation was interchangeability at the sub-assembly level. Every forward fuselage section was identical to every other forward fuselage section. Workers did not need to custom fit components because engineering tolerances ensured perfect compatibility. If a part fit the jig, it would fit the aircraft. By summer 1943, Long Beach was completing one C-47 every 47 minutes during peak production periods. The production rate that German intelligence dismissed as propaganda was actually conservative. The facility was capable of exceeding 100 aircraft per month from a single factory, a number that represented total German bomber production from all factories combined. At the Boeing facility in Wichita, Kansas, applying similar principles to B-29 Superfortress production despite the aircraft's far greater complexity. The B-29 represented the most technologically advanced bomber in the world, with pressurized crew compartments, remote-controlled defensive armament, and sophisticated fire control systems that German designers had not yet conceived. German intelligence analysts examining B-29 specifications had concluded that such an aircraft would require at least 5,000 man-hours to produce, making mass production economically impossible. Boeing's production engineers had reduced actual manufacturing time to under 1,800 hours through assembly line techniques and specialized tooling. The secret lay in breaking complex tasks into simple, sequential operations. Installing the pressurization system required no understanding of pressurization theory. Workers followed illustrated instructions showing exactly where each component attached and how each connection should be secured. Inspection procedures verified compliance with engineering specifications without requiring worker judgment about technical requirements. By August 1943, Boeing Wichita was producing B-29 components at rates that would soon achieve one completed aircraft every 4 hours. The facility employed over 29,000 workers who had been farm laborers, store clerks, and housewives 6 months earlier. These workers with minimal industrial experience were producing the most sophisticated combat aircraft in existence, using assembly methods that eliminated the need for traditional craftsmanship. The American production philosophy represented complete inversion of German manufacturing doctrine. Where Germany invested years training skilled craftsmen, America invested months developing specialized tooling that allowed unskilled workers to produce precision components. Where Germany emphasized worker judgment and adaptation, America emphasized mechanical fixtures that eliminated judgment requirements. Where Germany valued flexibility to accommodate design improvements, America valued standardization that prevented deviation from proven specifications. The mathematical implications were staggering. German factories employing highly skilled workers were producing 45 aircraft per day from the entire industrial base. American factories employing semi-skilled workers were approaching 100 aircraft per day from 3 facilities alone, with dozens of additional factories ramping up production using identical methodologies. The production rate differential was not linear, but exponential. As American factories refined assembly techniques and trained additional workers, production rates continued accelerating. German factories operating at maximum capacity using traditional methods had reached their sustainable production ceiling. Improvement required fundamental methodology changes that German industrial culture could not accommodate.
At the Consolidated Aircraft Factory in San Diego, California, manufacturing engineers had discovered something that would revolutionize military production forever. Assembly line manufacturing did not merely increase production speed, it fundamentally transformed the economics of industrial warfare. Production coordinator Sarah Mitchell, one of thousands of women who had entered aircraft manufacturing when men deployed to combat zones, understood this revolution in practical terms that German planners could never grasp.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
The specialized jigs and fixtures that positioned every component with mechanical precision meant that her team of former department store clerks could produce wing assemblies that met tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. No craftsmanship required, only the ability to follow sequential instructions and operate pneumatic tools. The breakthrough came in November 1942 when Consolidated achieved what manufacturing experts had considered impossible. A complete PBY Catalina flying boat rolled off the assembly line exactly 63 minutes after the previous aircraft. Not 65 minutes, not 60 minutes, but precisely 63 minutes measured from main gear attachment to final quality inspection. The consistency proved that aircraft manufacturing had become a mechanical process, as predictable as stamping automobile fenders. Production manager James Crawford documented the achievement in a report that reached the War Production Board in Washington within days. We have demonstrated that complex aircraft can be manufactured using assembly line techniques with quality control superior to traditional craft methods. The key is elimination of human judgment in favor of mechanical fixtures that ensure specification compliance. Every component either fits the jig or is rejected before installation. There is no custom fitting, no worker adaptation, no skilled judgment required. The first major validation of American mass production came on December 8, 1942, when the Army Air Forces accepted delivery of its 500th B-29 Flying Fortress built since Pearl Harbor exactly 12 months earlier. German intelligence had estimated American B-29 production at approximately 20 aircraft per month based on traditional manufacturing assumptions. The actual delivery rate of over 40 aircraft per month from Boeing Seattle alone represented double the German estimate, and 3 additional factories were ramping up B-29 production using identical assembly methods. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Patterson, commanding the Air Corps Acceptance Facility at the Boeing plant, witnessed something that would have seemed impossible to German observers. A B-29 that had not existed as assembled components 72 hours earlier was completing final flight testing with all systems functioning within specification limits. The aircraft would deploy to England within 2 weeks and fly combat missions with reliability equal to aircraft that had required months to manufacture using traditional methods. But the true revolution was not merely production speed. It was the systematic elimination of manufacturing bottlenecks that had always limited aircraft production. German factories required skilled workers who needed years to train and could not be rapidly replaced when casualties or illness reduced workforce capacity. American factories required workers who could be trained in weeks and replaced from an effectively unlimited labor pool of women, older men, and workers in non-essential industries. The mathematical implications were devastating to German strategic planning. Every skilled German aircraft worker represented years of training investment and could not be quickly replaced. Every American aircraft worker represented weeks of training investment and could be replaced from a population of over 130 million people, most of whom were not yet engaged in war production. By January 1943, the cumulative effect was becoming visible in delivery statistics that German intelligence simply refused to believe. American factories delivered 1,247 combat aircraft to Army Air Forces and Navy units during the month. The number exceeded total German aircraft production by a factor of nearly 3 to 1, and American production rates were still accelerating while German rates had plateaued at maximum sustainable capacity. The North American Aviation Factory in Inglewood, California, demonstrated the scalability of American methods by producing P-51 Mustang fighters at rates that seemed impossible even to American military planners. The facility had been producing training aircraft in 1940. By early 1943, it was delivering P-51 fighters at a rate exceeding 15 aircraft per day from a single factory complex. The production acceleration had required no increase in skilled workforce. Instead, the factory had refined assembly sequences and improved tooling to reduce the man-hours required per aircraft from initial production runs. The first P-51s had required approximately 5,000 man-hours to complete. By January 1943, the requirement had dropped to under 3,000 man-hours through systematic elimination of custom fitting and improvement of specialized fixtures. If you are amazed by these incredible incredible production numbers that German intelligence refused to believe. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We are just getting started with the most devastating industrial story of World War II, and the numbers are about to get even more shocking. The February 1943 production report revealed something that would have seemed like statistical error to German analysts. American factories delivered 2,100 aircraft to military services during the shortest month of the year. The daily production rate had exceeded 70 aircraft per day, averaged across all facilities and all aircraft types, and peak production days were approaching the 100 aircraft threshold that Generalmajor Hartmann had dismissed his propaganda 8 months earlier. At the Glenn Martin factory in Baltimore, Maryland, workers who had been unemployed during the Great Depression were producing B-26 Marauder medium bombers at rates exceeding 1 aircraft every 2 hours during peak production shifts. The facility employed over 50,000 workers, many of whom had never seen an aircraft before entering factory training programs. These workers with zero aviation experience were producing combat aircraft that would fly thousands of missions with reliability rates exceeding 85%. The key to this achievement was the complete abandonment of craftsmanship in favor of mechanical precision. Workers did not build aircraft, they installed components into fixtures that guaranteed correct positioning. Quality control inspectors did not evaluate workers' skill, they verified that components met engineering specifications. If a part passed inspection, it would function correctly regardless of who installed it or how much aviation experience they possessed.
March 1943 brought the systematic revelation of American industrial capacity through operational deployment rates that German intelligence could no longer dismiss as propaganda. Luftwaffe reconnaissance units flying over England began photographing American bomber formations that exceeded anything German strategic planning had anticipated. The airfields were filling with aircraft faster than German factories could produce replacements for combat losses. Generalmajor Werner Hartmann, the same officer who had dismissed American production claims 6 months earlier, now faced photographic evidence that contradicted every assumption about industrial capacity. His revised intelligence assessment to Reichsmarschall Goering revealed growing alarm that permeated the entire German command structure. American bomber strength in England has increased from 200 operational aircraft in September to over 800 operational aircraft in March. This rate of increase exceeds our previous estimates by a factor of 4. If current trends continue, American forces will achieve numerical superiority over the Luftwaffe by summer, despite our combat victory ratios. The psychological impact on German leadership extended beyond mere numbers to fundamental questions about industrial sustainability. German factories operating at maximum capacity were producing sufficient aircraft to replace combat losses, but could not expand production to match American buildup rates. The mathematics were becoming strategically decisive even before large-scale combat operations revealed the full implications. April brought the first statistical accounting of the production war that German planners had not realized they were losing. American factories delivered 3,217 aircraft to military services during the month. The number represented more aircraft than the entire Luftwaffe operational inventory at any point in the war. German monthly production of approximately 1,350 aircraft across all types suddenly appeared inadequate when compared to American output from an industrial base that was still expanding. At the Republic Aviation Factory on Long Island, production of P-47 Thunderbolt fighters demonstrated the scalability of American methods applied to the largest single-engine fighter aircraft in operational service. The P-47 weighed over 7 tons fully loaded, carried 8 50-caliber machine guns, and incorporated turbo supercharger technology that German designers had attempted but never successfully mass-produced. German intelligence analysts examining captured P-47 specifications estimated that such an aircraft would require at least 4,000 man-hours to manufacture using traditional methods. Republic Aviation was producing P-47s in under 2,500 man-hours using assembly line techniques that had been refined over 18 months of continuous production acceleration. By May 1943, Republic was delivering P-47s at rates exceeding 13 aircraft per day from the Long Island facility alone. Additional P-47 production was ramping up at a second factory in Evansville, Indiana, that would eventually exceed Long Island production rates.
The combined output from two factories would eventually reach over 25 P-47s per day, a production rate that exceeded total German single-engine fighter production from all factories combined. The June production report delivered to President Roosevelt revealed that American factories had achieved the production threshold that Generalmajor Hartmann had dismissed as impossible 9 months earlier. On June 17, 1943, American aircraft factories completed and delivered exactly 103 military aircraft to Army Air Forces and Navy acceptance facilities. The daily production rate that had seemed like propaganda had become routine industrial output. The achievement was not a temporary production spike, but represented sustainable capacity from an industrial base that was still expanding. New factories were opening, existing facilities were adding production lines, and worker training programs were graduating thousands of new manufacturing employees every week. The production rate would continue accelerating through late 1943 and into 1944. At the Curtiss Wright factory in Buffalo, New York, production of C-46 Commando transport aircraft revealed another dimension of American industrial advantage. The facility was simultaneously producing 3 different aircraft types using shared tooling and cross-trained workers who could shift between production lines based on priority requirements. German factories were optimized for single aircraft types and could not easily adapt to changing production requirements. American factories were designed for flexibility, allowing rapid response to evolving military needs without major retooling investments. July brought systematic destruction of German strategic planning through the cumulative weight of American production capacity. The 8th Air Force in England now fielded over 1,000 heavy bombers in operational units, with additional aircraft in reserve and training pipelines. German fighter forces faced opponents who could absorb catastrophic losses and return to full strength within weeks through replacement aircraft flowing from American factories. Oberst Heinrich Becker, commanding a fighter wing defending against American bomber raids, reported to Luftwaffe headquarters with barely concealed desperation. "We achieved 17 confirmed bomber destructions during today's mission. Intelligence reports indicate the Americans received 23 replacement bombers at English bases during the same 24-hour period. We cannot achieve victory ratios sufficient to offset their production advantage." The psychological impact on German forces extended beyond leadership to individual pilots who understood the mathematical impossibility of their situation. Luftwaffe fighter ace Major Gunther Schmidt, with 38 confirmed victories, wrote in his personal diary about the hopelessness of fighting an enemy with unlimited aircraft. "I have destroyed more American bombers than most pilots will ever encounter, yet there are more bombers over Germany today than when I began combat operations. We are shooting down shadows while the substance grows stronger." August brought the strategic bombing campaign to full intensity, enabled by American production capacity that could sustain losses that would have destroyed any other air force in history. The Schweinfurt raid on August 17th resulted in 60 B-17 bombers lost to German defenses, a catastrophic loss rate that would have ended British bomber operations permanently. American factories replaced all 60 aircraft within 4 days of actual production time. The lost bombers represented approximately 14 hours of American industrial output distributed across multiple factories. September brought the final revelation that shattered remaining German illusions about production sustainability. American factories delivered over 5,000 aircraft to military services during the month, a production rate that exceeded total German aircraft inventory, including training aircraft, transports, and obsolete types retained in storage. Generalmajor Werner Hartmann, reviewing the intelligence summary, finally understood what his dismissal of American production claims 9 months earlier had cost Germany. His final report acknowledged the reality that German leadership could no longer deny. October 1943 brought the final accounting of industrial warfare that would define the remainder of the conflict. American aircraft production had reached 6,200 aircraft per month, a rate that translated to over 200 aircraft per day when peak production periods were calculated. The number that Generalmajor Hartmann had dismissed as propaganda 12 months earlier had been exceeded by a factor of 2, and production rates were still climbing as new factories reached full operational capacity. The strategic implications extended beyond immediate aircraft availability to systematic destruction of German defensive capabilities. Every aircraft lost in combat could be replaced within hours from American production lines. Every German aircraft lost required days or weeks to replace from factories operating at maximum sustainable capacity. The mathematics of attrition warfare had been permanently altered by industrial capacity that German planners had never imagined possible. At the Boeing facility in Seattle, the final B-17 production statistics revealed the full scale of American manufacturing achievement. The factory had produced over 6,000 B-17 bombers using assembly line techniques that reduced manufacturing time from initial estimates of 12,000 man-hours to final production averages of 4,500 man-hours. Workers who had been shipyard laborers and salmon cannery employees 18 months earlier were producing the most sophisticated heavy bomber in operational service with quality control metrics that exceeded traditional craft manufacturing methods. November brought the systematic expansion of American air operations, enabled entirely by production capacity that could sustain losses unthinkable under traditional manufacturing constraints. The 8th Air Force launched missions with over 500 bombers, knowing that catastrophic losses could be replaced within the week. German fighter forces achieved impressive victory ratios, but could not inflict damage faster than American factories produced replacements. The human cost of this industrial revolution extended beyond combat casualties to transformation of American society. Over 2 million workers, predominantly women, had entered aircraft manufacturing from occupations that had never prepared them for industrial production. These workers were producing 60% of the world's military aircraft using techniques that eliminated the need for traditional craftsmanship in favor of mechanical precision. December brought the revelation that would define post-war aviation manufacturing forever. The combination of assembly line techniques, specialized tooling, and systematic worker training had reduced the skill requirements for aircraft production to levels that made industrial capacity effectively unlimited. The bottleneck was no longer worker availability, but factory construction and tooling production. American industrial planners were already designing facilities that would achieve production rates exceeding 300 aircraft per day by mid-1944. January 1944 brought Generalmajor Werner Hartmann's final report to the Reich Air Ministry before his reassignment to administrative duties, far from production planning. His assessment was classified as defeatist by political officers, but accurately described the industrial reality that Germany faced. American factories have achieved production rates that exceed our total manufacturing capacity by factors that make numerical parity impossible. Their assembly line methods have eliminated the skilled labor requirements that limit our production expansion. They can train workers in weeks who produce aircraft equal in quality to those built by our craftsmen trained for years. We cannot win a production war against an opponent with effectively unlimited manufacturing capacity. The final irony of the production war was that German criticisms of American manufacturing methods proved to be sources of American strength. The simplified construction that German engineers dismissed as cost-cutting actually enabled rapid production scaling. The interchangeable parts that seemed to sacrifice precision actually improved quality control through mechanical verification rather than worker judgment. The semi-skilled workforce that appeared inadequate for aircraft manufacturing actually provided unlimited scaling capacity. By February 1944, American factories were producing over 7,000 aircraft per month, while German production remained stagnant at approximately 1,500 aircraft monthly. The numerical superiority translated directly to operational capability that overwhelmed German defensive capacity regardless of tactical proficiency or aircraft performance characteristics. Hermann Göring's final assessment of Allied air superiority specifically acknowledged American production capacity as the decisive factor in German defeat. We developed superior aircraft and trained superior pilots, but we could not overcome an enemy who produced 10 aircraft for every one we manufactured. Industrial capacity proved more decisive than technical sophistication or tactical skill. The American aircraft production miracle of World War II established principles that continue governing military manufacturing today. Assembly line techniques, specialized tooling, and systematic workforce training remain the foundation of high-volume production. The nation with greater industrial capacity maintains decisive advantage regardless of individual equipment superiority. Modern military planners study American World War II production as the definitive example of industrial warfare.
The transformation of automobile manufacturing techniques into aircraft production methods revolutionized military logistics. Quantity of production proved more strategically valuable than quality of individual units when quality thresholds were met through mechanical precision rather than craftsmanship. The workers who built over 300,000 American military aircraft during World War II created more than weapons. They demonstrated that industrial capacity could be systematically expanded through methodology rather than limited by traditional skill requirements. The assembly line techniques that German engineers dismissed as unsuitable for aircraft manufacturing became the standard for all high-volume production industries. Today's aviation industry continues using principles established by American factories during World War II. Modern commercial aircraft are built using assembly line methods where specialized workers perform repetitive tasks using precision tooling. The Boeing 737 and Airbus A320, the most produced commercial aircraft in history, descend directly from manufacturing techniques developed at Willow Run and Douglas Long Beach facilities 80 decades ago. When German intelligence officers first read reports claiming American factories could produce 100 aircraft daily, they dismissed the concept as impossible propaganda. By war's end, they understood they had been witnessing not propaganda, but industrial revolution. America, indeed, had created a manufacturing system that could produce aircraft faster than Germany could destroy them, and the Third Reich never stood a chance against such overwhelming industrial capacity. The final production statistics tell the complete story. American factories produced over 300,000 military aircraft between 1940 and 1945. German factories produced approximately 120,000 aircraft during the same period. The nation that mastered assembly line manufacturing techniques achieved production superiority of nearly 3-to-1, and that numerical advantage proved more decisive than any technological innovation or tactical doctrine in determining the war's outcome.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.